So, thank you and welcome back to the second episode of this podcast. Today, we will be looking through hope and if it is in video games. Um, Today, I will be one of your co hosts, Devin Jackson. Pronouns he, him. Brief fun fact about me, I really like Call of Duty Zombies. So, yeah, how about you, co-host?
I'm Sky. I use they them pronouns. And a fact about me is that I have a very clingy cat who keeps coming back and forth to my room to see me.
Very nice, very nice. Glad to have you back. So, first things first, think we should probably give a good rough layout of what we'll kind of discuss. First, we'll talk about if there is actually hope in video games, or if it's all just hopelessness or just desperation. Then after that, um, I'll tell a story about a game that I feel like shows hope pretty well. Um, and then, Sky, do you have a story for a video game that represents hope pretty well?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, wonderful. And then we'll kind of end it off on recapping. So, let us begin on if there is hope in video games. From my personal research and experience, there is hope in video games. What are your thoughts, Sky?
Yeah, there's definitely hope in video games. Video games can represent a lot of different things and different topics.
Yeah, I have to agree. Um, feel like it's not the main point of all video games. I feel like a there's pretty good representation in all genres of video games of hope in various ways. I mean, for a brief example, you can see Overwatch, for example, with the Overwatch team versus Talon, uh, which is a hero shooter, and the story they push is hope, even against, even if hated by the United Nations, they still do the right thing, as opposed to Talon, who is funded by secret CEOs. So let's let's assume this totally has nothing to do with our current world. um,
Of course.
of course, um, but yeah, you can see it in various different ways. Sometimes that is the main thing. That's literally what they're trying to tell you. Feel like there's hope in different ways too. It's not just your straight up common sense of hope, like in class how we watched Superman. That one's literally a big fat example of hope because that's what he represents is hope. But we also have other senses of hope that we watched in class, such as Rocky, because spoilers for those who haven't seen it, Rocky technically loses. He didn't win at the end of the original Rocky film against Creed, but he won the battle in his sense because all he cared about was Adrian. Yo, Adrian. So, so I feel like that various different hopes. It's also seen in video games. So, yeah. Um, Anything you want to add there?
Not just that video games can be just as varied as movie and TV shows and whatnot. So yeah.
Very true. Very true. Um, let's see. And also, you can get games where I'll admit not all games are about hope. There are some games that certainly there is no. The point is to prove there is no hope. Um, trying to think of a good example of that. I'd say, oh, what's some recent games I've played with this? Can you think of any games where there's hopelessness?
I'm actually not sure.
Um, let me look back at my notes here. Uh, hmm,
I suppose there is one game that I can think of.
hit me. Or us.
Um, it's a small indie game, I believe, called Endling Extinction is Forever, where you play as a fox trying to survive in a world that's getting polluted by humans. The forest is being burned down, um, and it's getting increasingly hard to find food and survive with your pups as
Mhm.
you explore this world. But even by the end, it's still kind of like there's definitely sad things, but I feel like at the end there is still hope even in that game.
Yeah,
But things definitely aren't going great in that game.
right, right.
It's been a while since I've played it, so I'm trying to remember it.
Um, an example I can think of, I suppose, The Last of Us 2. Um, the ending, very, very much not positive. It just ends with trauma. The whole story about revenge, and yet it ends with trauma. And obviously, I do need to point out that these are my, at least our personal opinions and interpretations of these stories, so they're subjective, as all pieces of art are. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's hopelessness in in video games too. So you got both sides. But usually I see hope still appearing in more games than not, even if they start out very hopeless.
Yeah.
How about those DDLC fans? Just kidding. That's if you know, you know. Um,
Indeed.
I suppose we can't just talk about that for a second. I mean, we've got plenty of time.
Yeah.
So, this is unrelated to our actual the games we have brought forth. I would think. I don't think yours was DDLC, was it?
No.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Um, so yeah, DDLC, also known as Doki Doki Literature Club. Oh my god, the fact that I'm using this in an actual final. I obviously am not taking this super seriously. If you're this far in Dr. Ogwin, I hope you're enjoying this. I'm not taking this super seriously, but I am also trying to seriously investigate hope in this. Um, and this is also probably a good time to mention, if I start cursing, sorry. Um, it's it's probably not going to be that much of a problem since you kind of curse in class, so I think I'm covered. But anyways, Doki Doki Literature Club. Let's get into it. So, it's formatted similar um, to a visual novel style. Um, it's all meant to be cutesy, kind of like a dating sim. That's how it's at least structured. Um, you you kind of just meet up with your old friend, um, Sayori, who's your neighbor, and yeah, it goes pretty well. You get introduced to the literature club, and I know that one's probably a big surprise. Excuse me. But yeah, introduced to the literature club, you meet the three members there, which includes your best friend, your best childhood friend, who is your neighbor, um, Sayori. Next is the club president, Monica. Very, very studious, very popular, if you will. Could probably be in any other club, but decided to found the literature club. Uh, Up next, we've got, um, I guess there's four members, sorry. I miscounted. Next one up is Yuri, um, unrelated to the genre. Um, and she's very much your quiet, uh, neat personality. How would you describe Yuri?
She's very much reserved and very interested in books, like long novels, um, with very fanciful kind of writing.
Yeah, I'd say that's a perfect description. I mean, you've had more experience with the game than I have, so.
Yeah,
And then there is Natsuki, who is very angry at the world and is just very closed off, except with friends. And the stuff that she likes to read is more so like manga, because this is the literature club is her only space to, you know, read it, since she has her own home problems, because all these characters have their own problems. Well, most of these characters have problems. Um, and yeah, anything else? Did I miss anything with any of the characters you
I will
think
say
is.
about Natsuki, she also gives off this very cutesy demeanor, probably to try and hide off some of her other feelings.
Yeah, the stereotype of a, what is it? Yawn?
Tsundere?
Tsundere, that's what it is. Thank you. I don't know how to describe the others in uh, terms of the because this is all kind of meant to be focused in. I want to say Japan, but obviously it's just kind of its own standalone thing. Yeah, it's an interesting story that is meant to take place in Japan, but is obviously um, very much for the English-speaking audience, especially since the
Yeah.
developer is a United States uh, citizen. Um, but yeah, point is, you kind of just play through the game. You get introduced to the mechanic of, making poems, which just kind of pick words that you think would fit a certain character that you're trying to get your affection up with, and then you can spend the day with them, and you do that for a few days. I want to say it's not quite a week long, because the point is to prepare for a school festival that they want to get prepared for. And slowly through it, you kind of see the faults of each character and where things have gone wrong, where what the problem is. Because you also get to read the other characters' notes, and they can kind of allude to what's happening. And yeah, you kind of see the characters change due to your influence. And it seems very hopeful. Very hopeful. It's like, we're looking forward to the school festival. And anything I'm missing for first playthrough besides the big twist?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Um, but yeah, you kind of just go through that, and you, in preparation for the festival, like a couple days before, I think, it's the weekend before, I think, you get to hang out with one of two people. There are four options, but you only actually have two options, because the point is to railroad you a little bit, because there is a narrative being pushed. Um, and after the weekend, you go to. I don't think there's one day of stuff. I think it jumps straight to. You come back, you're there at school early, you run into Monica, the club president, again, and she, I'm gonna pick my words very carefully here. She's like, hey, I thought you and Sayori were supposed to show up together, since you're neighbors. She's running behind. I thought she would be with you, and you're like, oh, I thought she was already here. Must be sleeping in. Let me go get her. And Monica's like, yeah, don't leave her hanging around. It's rude. So you go back to the house, your to your neighbor's house, Sayori, and you find out a very hopeless realization that her depression was not a joke. That was real. And she really was hanging in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the game glitches really badly and it resets itself. And it is very glitchy. When you try to start your next playthrough, it it glitches because Sayori is dead. She's dead. And the game's like, this doesn't make sense. This isn't computing. So it just restarts itself and writes itself back without having Sayori. So the game restarts with the lack of a whole character. And you play through the game again with an alternate story to railroad you into meeting all these characters still. And you run it again. Problem is, the character's a little bit more intense in each way. Um, so but it's structured exact same. And yeah, anything else I'm missing so far?
Um, Not really, no.
Um, but I would say that Monica is a bit more assertive in ways, but in the end, she still caves to let the other two remaining members uh, have their time with you. And you still have the same choices of like getting to spend a day with each one. And then, let's see. Do the characters get to make it to the festival that time around, or does it end for both characters a little before then?
Um, it ends the day before, I'm pretty sure, because you spend the weekend there.
Gotcha, gotcha. And it's if you pick Yuri's route, it that intensity, you really figure out what happened. And yeah, if you kind of spend your time with her mostly, mm, I do believe she just shows her intense devotion for you, the main character, and just pulls out a knife and just goes right into her own gut. Straight up honorable samurai death. And if you choose Natsuki, it's she reads manga with you, but at some point her face glitches with black spots covering her eyes and mouth, and then her neck just magically snaps. So, yeah, it certainly interesting story. Um, and then you play the game again one last time, and it railroads you into seeing the other person's ending. You have to spend time with the other person. And
With just Monica.
yes, and then you end with just Monica. Eventually, you figure out the game has actually been controlled by Monica, like a rogue AI, which I don't think we've seen anything about that in recent years. I don't think we've seen anything about like I have no mouth but I must scream with Am, or more recently with the digital circus. I'm bringing up so much weird stuff. Uh,
We're
with the
nerds, it's fine.
yes, yes, with the digital circus and that show where Kane is basically Am and each of the characters fit the roles from I have no mouth but I must scream, but they're different. They're changed up slightly, and the ending has been written. The end of the show has not been seen yet. That comes out in a month or so, and right now it already differs from the story because big reveal, big spoiler. Um, Kane is killed at the end of the second to last episode, meaning the big bad AI was killed. So weird. Anyways, back to the rogue AI from DDLC, Monica. Um, and it's just Monica. It's just Monica. And she's very obsessed with you. But more importantly, more obsessed with what's outside the screen. She just wants to be real. A real human. A real person. But she can't. And she sees that. She comes to understand that. So she begins to understand and she deletes herself. And that's with quotation marks. Um, then the story starts over one last time, for old time's sake. And, well, Monica doesn't exist in the story. But it starts kind of the same way, but slight variation in the sense that since Sayori was the original vice president of the club, she now is considered the president of the club. And, well, she's not so well versed in how to control the game, but she's now in control. And she doesn't beat around the bush. She jumps straight into being obsessive. And Monica steps one more time, steps in one last time, and just says, you know what? It doesn't work. None of it works. Just just move on. Delete the game. Here's the credits and a really cool song before the game fully deletes itself because as the credits roll, the game slowly deletes itself until it deletes itself in the end.
Yeah.
And that did I miss anything else? Any big storyline details?
No?
Okay. But yeah, that's that's it's got ups and downs. There's hope. Then you realize it's hopeless because you, the character, don't actually have any control in this game. And that's the best part about the game is the fact that like the game is built on you have control. You get to decide who you want to date in this dating sim. And yet you don't actually. There's only four options, but you can only really pick two of them. And then slowly your options become none. You get railroaded into having to see certain characters. And you just realize at the end of the game you didn't have any control. You just were there. You were at the mercy of Monica, and Monica knew that. I mean, she she was not only in control of the game, but if you play on, say, computer, where it was originally from, she she reads your files. She reads all that stuff, and she adds text files in the game files, kind of just trying to figure things out, and then she actually knows who you are. Like, actually goes through your computer and asks your real name, not the game you put in, not the name you put in the game. So yeah, that's I think all I gotta say about that example of hope, hopelessness, and then hope again. And yeah, and that was just an example. That's not even the one I brought to the table, and that's certainly not the one you brought to the table, Sky. So
Yeah.
I feel like I've done a lot of talking, so I think it's fair we let you do some talking. You get a story. You get to share yours.
Okay. Um, so I chose Silk Song, which I've been playing recently, and I think it's a good example of hope because I mean it's a difficult game, but your character never loses hope despite the world getting more and more dangerous around her. And you, as the player, will likely not give up your hope to keep playing, keep beating the bosses, and whatnot. the world is what? It's stricken by a silk sickness that is possessing these dead um, creatures and bringing them back to life and attacking everyone. And you've been captured and brought to this land, and so you have to save them from this, or else you're just not going to be able to realistically leave. You'll be brought back again. And your character just never gives up hope in trying to fight off what's going on. Yeah, I mean, I can go more into the story, but
I
yeah,
guess since I haven't actually played through the game, like literally all I know is just kind of what everybody tells me, um, and what you've shown me.
yeah.
And you've explained kind of the hope in the beginning and how it progresses through the story. But how about the ending? Like, how does that, which I don't know anything about the ending, and I go right ahead and share as much as you need, but what does the ending show? Hopefulness, hopelessness, or just something?
Well, in order to get to the ending, I need to explain a little bit more
Go for it.
because so the game is made in acts. So there's Act One, where you're trying to get to the city on top of this kingdom. There's Act
Mhm.
Two, where you explore the city itself, and then Act Three is actually decently hard to get to because you have to do all of the side quests, help out all the people of this land. Um, and then instead of killing the like goddess that's at the top of this city that's been guiding this curse, um, you end up binding her to this void that lurks below the entire world. And from down there, she does not give up fighting because she wants to keep her daughter alive, who has been brought down with her. And so now the world is stricken by Thread and by Void, so everything gets even more difficult to fight. Um, and so then you have to make your way back down to the bottom of this land and fight her daughter, who has been cursed by the Void and attempts to fight you. And by the end, you clear this Void off of her, and her mother gives you her power to help you get back out of this void. And you just barely don't make it until the protagonist from the previous game comes back and saves you and this goddess's daughter, brings you back up to the surface. And then it's implied that the two of them just go on living their life, uh, just from how the ending looks. So even when it looks like there's no hope for this world, when everything is coming down, the protagonist keeps on fighting their way down, and yeah, her allies that she's made help her win this battle, really,
Mhm.
showing that even when things look hopeless, there's always a way to win. And I think the gameplay reflects that too, because, like I said, it's a difficult game, but as long as you persevere, you can always keep fighting and beat this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Nice.
that's most of what I have to say about Silk Song, so
That's fair. Your analysis is probably going to be a lot more brief than mine because well, before we get there, I do think that is a good example of hope. I certainly think that, she was scaffolded by her allies and friends because they shared the same hope that she could banish the evil, if you will, of like be the hero of the story for them in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's perfect. Probably gonna fit a lot better than mine because mine has slowly turned from hope into maybe not so much hope, but it's hard to tell. So, if you've got nothing else to say regarding Silk Song, I will move on to my topic then.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, Call of Duty Zombies. You know I had to bring it back to this. I always bring it back. It's like the William Afton of me. It always comes back.
Indeed.
Which FNAF is also a good example of something that could probably be looked at, but like because the story doesn't have much concrete, it's kind of hard to tell what's hopeful and what's hopeless. So
Yeah. The story is very convoluted and not even complete yet. So,
it
you know.
never will be complete.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Call of Duty Zombies. I will leave out the entire history of it, because I'm sure that I could make an entire podcast episode of just Call of Duty Zombies on its own.
You'd probably make an entire podcast about it.
I probably could. There are some out there already, and it's certainly on the list of things I would want to do in my life, but I would need to find somebody who actually likes zombies and is actively like up to date with things and like plays the games because you know surprisingly this entire background footage for this has been Black Ops 7 zombies, which I pre-recorded earlier today, and I will probably have to reset the footage from its beginning at some point because it's only 46 minutes long, and something tells me mine might take a little bit, slightly longer than that. So, anyways, to my actual point, Call of Duty Zombies is a story of hope. At least it was. But also it still is. So let me explain. So, the beginning of the game starts in Call of Duty World at War, and it continues to go into the Call of Duty games like Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3, and Black Ops 4 is where the story of at least the Ether timeline, which is completed. They have officially said that that is completed. It's not something they will ever touch again. They're just going to expand on their Dark Ether timeline now, which is what they've been doing. Um, but the mode started out as literally just a passion project. It was created by just some devs during their lunch breaks, and it was added as an Easter egg at the end of completing the campaign as a reward. You had to complete through the entire story, and you unlocked it. And it's it's pretty cool to look back and see the hope of these developers themselves and just making a mode they thought was fun. And it took the game by storm. Is evident by the fact that it's still around. I want to say World at War came out in 20. Let me look it up. I want to say the 20th anniversary is coming up soon. Man, I'm old. When did World at War come out? It was released November 11th, 2008. That was created like 9 months after my sister was born. I was 4 years old when that came out. So, very long time that this has existed. Um, and they they had no plan for the story to begin with because it was a passion project. So you do have to give them a little bit of grace on the fact that A, they made that story up for that game off their cuffs. They didn't realize it'd be such a big thing. So the first actual thing that matters is the last map that came out in that game. So it's when they actually had a story. And from there, you see the journey of our four heroes, which aren't heroes. Honestly, they're more like survivors, anti-heroes. They're not they're not perfect people. They're certainly not bad people. Well, maybe one of them is. We'll get there soon enough. Uh, but you follow these four characters and their whole story. Um, and just kind of seeing what happens. Them building and learning each other, just trying to survive, and they work together, following their narcissistic leader, the and the very reason why this whole mess is a mess. The very catalyst is the very leader they follow. Um, I'm about to sneeze, so excuse me.
Bless
So
you.
sorry. Thank you. But yeah, the the three people following the leader of Dr. Edward Richtofen is followed by Takio Masaki, the samurai, um, on that personally serves the Emperor of Japan, and then there's Tank Dempsey, an American, who he's a big bonehead. He knows how to yell, knows how to curse, and knows how to shoot the undead. Kinda all you really need to know. And he's American. Did I say he's an American yet? Um, Followed by our final uh, supporting character, our main character, being Nikolai Belinsky, a Russian that's always drunk, and apparently had many wives, some of which died in mysterious ways, others in not so mysterious ways, but were totally not because of Nikolai in any way. Um, and yeah, back to Richtofen, and he's a member of Group 9 through 5, which experiments heavily on the very things that they're fighting. And he's helped make many of the machinery or weapons that these characters will use from this point forward, such as his passion project and favorite weapon of all time, his Wunderwaffe DG2. Just don't shoot that thing while teleporting. Just a heads up there. Mess up the timeline. And it's kind of explained the characters. It's you see them travel through time and space. About exactly what they are. Sorry, I'm fixing the gameplay because it ran out of time. The characters are just fighting for their lives. Well, except for Richtofen, who is fighting for his life, but also trying to become a god. Which, goofy man, goofy closeted gay man under Nazi Germany. He's totally not trying to get his ultimate power just so he can finally come out. Uh, and also, don't mind my useless rambling. The hope that the characters want is to just finally get to go home and just not have to worry about anything anymore. And you see the characters trust each other, trust allies they don't even know, um, deal with seeing themselves just from an alternate universe and working alongside them to break this cycle that apparently they're a part of. And the only way that they were able to break out of the cycle is a version of Richtofen gave up control and gave it over to somebody else who still was able to think clearly without delusions of grandeur and a character that is not affected by not having a soul, which is its own big can of worms, which we will not be getting into. Not today. Maybe another episode. And yeah, they start going on their new quest of trying to get out of the cycle. And in the end, Nikolai had to make the ultimate sacrifice. He had poisoned the very wine and food that the characters ate while celebrating, like, hey, we're just waiting on this other team to finish their part and then we're free. And they share stories around the campfire about what they're gonna do once they get out of there, once they're free. and Nikolai had to sacrifice all of them because they're the reason why there is no world that can exist in peace. They cannot exist anymore. But there are innocents that were there. The very souls of Samantha Maxis, which is the daughter of the head scientist of Group 935 and the one that ordered Dr. Richthofen around. And the soul of the most innocent version of Dr. Richthofen. Two innocents that made their great escape before the cycle could continue. And Nikolai destroyed the very things that could continue, um, creating the timelines. He destroyed the very tool, the summoning key, that created and held all the souls and the, the Shadow Man, which is the big antagonist, and the the good guy in quotations, which at this point we didn't realize he was a good guy. Like quite literally, as of the time of recording this, um, I want to say 2 months, maybe a month ago, uh, most of the ciphers from Black Ops 3 Revelations, um, which was a like to be continued screen, um, before going into their final game of Black Ops 4. Well, when they concluded the story in Black Ops 4. And it turns out he, after everything in the continued universe timeline, apparently he really did just raise the kids, which were those innocent souls of each of the characters. They all grew up and lived normal lives. But that's not how this timeline went. Two of those souls escaped, um, and were set loose from the house. But they didn't actually exist anywhere. So Nikolai kind of just gave them a chance to live a normal life. Everybody died after the universes were all collided and sent to the dark ether, if I'm remembering my story right, which I probably will. And he gives a literal child a gun to shoot him in the back of the head. I don't know why he didn't just take himself out. I don't know if that was like a religious sort of thing, but like yeah, he made a child shoot him in the back of the head before she could walk into the new perfect universe, the one where there's only one, and they step in and they live happily ever after. Hopefulness. And then the next game came out, and we see the character, Samantha, all grown up and dealing with zombies again. So, yeah, the only thing that ends hope is greed, money. So, and now, as you can see in this very footage on your screen, the characters are back in some regard, so they've caused multiple universes to exist again, and they all exist in different time periods, because this area that you're seeing right now is uh, post-Civil War, a town in Georgia. Yeah, yeah, with racism, am I right? And there's hope. The characters are again fighting the good fight and just trying to go home. Is that how it'll go? I have no idea because as of recording this video, um, the let's see, the fourth map out of the six maps, so we're moving into the second half, is coming out on Thursday this week, on April 29th, 30th, the 30th, sorry, April 30th. And it's a story of hope and hopefulness, and at the end of the day, pretty sure everything goes well, but also it's hard to tell in a narrative that is continuing to be written, especially since over the course of all of this, this has been a long story that's been, changed time and time again. I mean, the person in charge of all of it was fired in Black Ops 2 era, and he has three of the maps he made total. And the other person who was filling in, um, the first person is Jimmy Zielinski, if that helps anybody, and the second person that's going to be in charge that was working on the last two maps in Black Ops 2 is Jason Blundell, which the community holds as their god figure, I guess. He put in his resignation or something. Maybe he was fired. I don't really know what the story is. I believe the official story is that he resigned so he could go work on his studio or work on a studio with a friend, which went under. So he went to another studio that also recently just went under, and now he's working on his third one. Um, that's besides the point. Quite genuinely, that I guess that's another story of hope is that he never gives up. Um, and yeah, Black Ops 4 was a real changing point because that was the end of classic zombies, and now we are in the era of modern zombies, which, if I'm to guess, is probably going to be ending soon, and we'll probably be into a new era, just because of the fact that the amount of time spent in each era is about the same. And yeah, I think that's. I know the story's hopeful. I don't know if I explained it super well, but I know that Sky explained their story pretty well, and I did a fairly decent example with DDLC, which, again, there are things that I never thought I'd talk about, and yet here we are.
Yeah.
So I guess to recap, um, there's hope, there's hopelessness, um, various different types of hope. I mean, you can see all different types of hope in Call of Duty Zombies, just based on the eras and the pure amount of time, which, yeah, 2008. 2000, November of 2008 is when this started. That is almost 18 years ago.
Yeah.
By the time the next game comes out, it'll be 20 years. It'll be the 20-year anniversary of Call of Duty Zombies. and I hope there's many more. And yeah, honestly, I think Call of Duty Zombies has seen every sort of type of trope, and everything has been thrown at the wall. I mean, you started out with the Nazi occultism. I mean, the entire point was to follow a Nazi scientist. And to be fair, Dr. Richtofen, weirdly enough, although he's narcissistic and is evil, he doesn't like the Nazis. Weird, right? he he may be the lowest of the low, but even he has standards. Um, Up until the newest iteration of Richtofen, which is meant to be a Nazi. So yeah, yeah, that's fun.
Lovely.
Yeah, yeah, don't you love seeing that? Anywho, yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else? Do you have anything to say? Anything to add, at least?
I don't think so.
Okay. Um, I'd like to thank our sponsor for this. Recently, they've been making a comeback since their commercial back in the 90s, which really, really shows off a good example of hope, Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Totally. The one that we talked about in class being the the one company with shampoo, conditioner, and I think body lotion called Orgasm, which you're right, Dr. Ogwin. The 90s ads were something. Certainly something. And let's see, is there anything else I got to say? Hmm, I don't think I got much else to say. You got any final message relating to literally anything that you'd like to share, Sky?
Um, I don't know. Hope can be found everywhere, I guess.
Yeah, I
I
like that.
agree.
I like that message. Let's see if I can think of anything that was good. Um, hmm. Yeah, I think you've kind of summed it up. There's always hope at the end of the tunnel, even in hopelessness. There's still some way you can find hope. That's probably more so related to existentialism, such as, you know, trying to say, hmm, what is it? It was it was the one psychologist uh, who went to concentration camps in Nazi Germany. He had the chance to get out. He was about to board a plane or something to get away, but he turned around. He turned around and went home. Was taken in and went to concentration camps. And what he learned was that it was a really bad situation. Really bad. But at least people in concentration camps, they got to choose how they died. Which may seem odd, as explained in class, but they got to choose if they when and if they disobeyed, they could make a run for it, get shot. That's one way to die. They could go into a gas chamber, and, well, obviously, that's probably not a pleasant way. Or a furnace. But at least they got to choose when they got to die. That's the one thing the Nazis could never take from them. They can strip away every other piece, but at least they got to still choose how they went, when they went. So yeah, even in hopelessness, there's hope. But I guess to conclude, um, other than that, to finish off this last project that have to work on before graduating, um, I gotta say, to end things off, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And yeah, thank you again, folks, and thank you again, my wonderful co-host, Sky.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. Tune in next time, folks.